Okay, hope this works. Well, the car works obviously, but I mean that I will actually be able to make myself heard. So I'm about to turn on the heat. That means that there's going to be extra noise. That normally isn't the case. Let's see if I can make this turn. Looks like I can. We will have to go back and forth a couple times. But anyway, I have like an extra little microphone attached to the phone right now so that when I'm driving I can actually be heard, hopefully. And it's just a little bit annoying because the cable's in the way, but alright, fine. I wanted to film at the same time, so that's how we are going to have to do it. Let's go. Okay, so I thought it might be fun to talk in a car chat style video about my car history and how many cars I've had so far, which is 3, so that's already one question answered real quick. And I didn't want to have to yell over the air conditioning and the engine sound, obviously, because that's quite noisy. But anyway, so I got my license, I want to say fairly late in 2004, when I was already 23, I think, something along those lines, because first they got me driving lessons and didn't really work very well. Also, there was a bit of an awkward moment there at the start when I turned 18. Both my parents had bought driving lessons for me with 2 different organizations because they were divorced. So they were like, oh, she's turning 18, I'll buy her some driving ed lessons. And both parents had that thought, so I was driving with 2 different people initially. Now, I liked the one that my dad got me better, the instructor, but I live with my mom, so I couldn't just go and tell her like, oh, I actually like Dad's driving instructor better, because I don't know, that would have sounded like I liked him better than her, so I didn't really want that. So I went and with that other guy that she had bought, and he had a good instructor in his team, but that was not the instructor that was also there for my final test. That was actually the owner that was there all of a sudden. They switched me out right before the exam, and that kind of made me very nervous because I already had attached myself to this other instructor and learned to drive with him, and then suddenly I had to take the test with this other guy who was really impatient and just kind of the opposite of what I needed, so to speak. Anyway, so that didn't go very well. It kind of left me with a bit of a trauma surrounding driving and driving exams, and so I just didn't drive for a long time. And then in 2003, I was working at some place and they had a new project coming up, and they literally called me into a meeting. Why is this guy so slow? Oh, you're going that way. Okay, good. Great. Come on. You can turn a little faster. See, I see that the lights here are blinking, but there's nobody here. Right, anyway, so they called me in with this other guy who was sort of my direct co-worker, and talked about this new project and how much fun it was going to be and how they were looking for somebody to set it up. And then he specifically mentioned like, oh, we're not going to give it to you, in other words to me, because you don't have a driver's license, something like that. So I was like, okay, well, we'll see about that then. Not that I wanted that project, but it was more like, oh, you think I can't drive because I'm just so inept or something? Well, I'll show you, that type of thing. So then I went and got my driver's license because I wanted to, and that was a lot better. Also, I chose the organization myself this time. There's some new bumps in the road. Did you notice those? They're very sharp compared to the old ones. I went to this organization called ANWB, which is also kind of like the road help service. There's this car help service, I guess, if you have like trouble on the road, they can come help you, but they also have a training organization to train new drivers, and they have like theory and practice in one package, which I thought was very helpful because it was basically like going to school. I just went there, 8 a.m. Would be the start of the lesson. Why is this guy so slow? Or are you going that way? Practically have to stop for this one. All right, fine. You're out of the way. Great. So I would go there and lessons start about 8:30, and I would have theory in the morning, and then in the afternoon we would actually drive around, and it went like that for like 2 or 3 weeks. And after that I got a couple of practice exams, which was also very helpful just to see how that went. And then the first actual exam that I had after that I actually passed, so that was really a lot better than the previous attempt. But anyway, so after that I went and basically just drove for work-related things. They had a couple of cars that I could borrow, and occasionally I would have to bring some hardware to other areas, other sites of the company, so to speak. And that was basically all the driving that I did, because I lived in the center of town at the time and I didn't really need a car for my personal life, because everything, as soon as I walked out the building, there would be stores all around, because I was in the middle of the shopping center, and the train station was just a couple of minutes walk away, and I had a grocery store like 5 minutes down the road, so I really didn't need a car. And then I moved out to where I am now, and then I thought, you know what, maybe I should get a car of my own. But by then it had been 10 years since I had that job where I was allowed to drive for work, because after that the company merged with another company. I was put in a position where I didn't need to drive anymore, so I wasn't driving at all anymore for about 10 years. But when I moved out here, I thought, why don't I just go ahead and buy myself a car and just take a look, see how it goes, because usually I would go somewhere by train and then just walk or cycle and stuff like that. But I thought that, because people always tell me like, oh, once you have a car, you don't really want to go without anymore because you got so much freedom and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, let's see how that works then. So I have no knowledge of cars really, and I just went looking for a secondhand car that was reasonably priced. That's the word I'm looking for. And I found a Daewoo Matiz, which looked really nice. And it was fairly cheap, so I was like, okay, looks good. I went to take a look at it. I don't know anything about cars, so obviously the car was not as great as I thought it was. Oh, let's go over here, because I need a little bit more time to talk to you guys. So that's one thing. Can I go in second gear for this, or are you guys going to stop? What's up? No? Okay. So I went and bought that Daewoo Matiz, and when I went to buy it, I did a little test drive on the parking area where it was at, because I didn't really want to take it out on the road yet, because I wasn't quite comfortable driving by myself really, because I was still kind of like, what would I say, it had been a long time, so I was kind of worried that maybe my driving skill wasn't really up to snuff, so I didn't really want to immediately go out on the road with this new car that I had. I did have to drive it home, obviously, but when I went to buy it, there was just this guy who like fixed up cars and sold them by himself. He worked for another type of car company, but he had this little side business selling off these cars. So I bought that car from him, and one of the things they asked me when we actually went to look at the car was like, oh, you don't have any kids, do you? And I was like, huh, why are you flirting with me while I'm trying to buy a car? That's what I was thinking initially. Not that I was interested or anything, it just sounded a really odd question. Anyway, so he asked me that, and then I thought, well, okay, that's weird, but all right. And I drove it home with a lot of trouble, because I kept like stalling, because it had been a long time and stuff like that, and the roadworthiness test was coming up. I had to have it checked. Well, you have to check most cars that are like older than 5 years. You have to have an annual check to see if they're still roadworthy, as they call that. So I had to send it for that. And I didn't want to drive it over there myself, because I was still too intimidated to drive it. So I asked the garage to come pick it up, and they did. And they ended up calling me about a couple hours later about the status of the car and stuff like that. And they said, oh, well, actually, there's not a whole lot of big things wrong with the car, but there's so many little things that I think it's going to cost like about, what did they say, 1,200 euros to have it fixed. And we don't know if that's going to fit in your budget. And I was like, well, that's roughly the amount that I paid for it, so just total it then, and I'll buy another one. So that was not a great experience for my first car. So then I didn't have a car for a little while, and I went looking with my dad. Oh, it's about, yeah, no, it's good. Had a couple of cars, and ended up buying the next one, which was the Fiat Panda. And that one was actually not bad. It actually managed to get through at least one roadworthiness test, except for the one recently where the garage was, I guess, a little bit more strict, because I brought it to a different garage initially. That was kind of like, it's a good garage, but they're not super strict, like that VIN number thing that ended up being the issue with the Panda. They would not have really looked at that, or maybe just made a note of it and had it checked out, like tested that it was actually a functionally driving car, and then went, hey, maybe I want to have that number reset, something like that, so I could still keep going. Why are we slowing down? It's green, you guys. What's going on? Anyway, so yeah, the first test it went through fairly well. There were a couple of points that I needed to look at, but nothing that they had to fix or anything, so that was good. And everything seemed to be going fine, except for the fact that the clutch, the pedal, was very weak. But that's, I guess, a thing that's specific to Pandas. At least the guy that I sold it to was like, oh yeah, that's something Pandas do. They have a very spicy gas pedal, And then they tend to have, yeah, I guess they're a little harder to control because it's a car that's like been min-maxed, as they call that, but they make sure to have all the things that a car needs, but nothing extra, so it's a very basic car model, so to speak. But yeah, so I went and had that checked out at a different garage, but I also wanted to have the tire changed. So I actually just went to a business that changes tires as well as does the checkup, so that I could have both of them done at the same time. Now, first of all, they also started complaining about the fact that the tires apparently didn't match the car. I don't know anything about tires, so I just kind of looked up on their website, like, hey, this is the type of car I have, what type of tires fit there, and they gave me 2 different options. I was like, okay, this one's good, whatever that was, and that turned out not to fit. So that was an issue, but then they started to talk about how the VIN number, which is like the registration number that is unique to every car, was rusted, and how that needed to be replaced, and they couldn't do the check. They couldn't complete the check without the VIN number being replaced. And that was very close, like within a month of the registration, or not the registration, the roadworthiness validity, like expiring. And after that, I wouldn't be allowed to drive it anymore. So I needed a car because I was about to start a new job. And so I just had to sell it. That was really unfortunate because I really liked that car. Despite the fact that the pedals were a little bit annoying, I really liked the type of car. I liked how it was efficient. I had a good amount of space in the trunk as well. And it really worked well. So I kind of feel like that car was stolen from me in a way because they were a little too strict. They could have just like said, oh, the car drives well, but here's a point, you need to have this fixed. That number needs to be reprinted, that type of thing, you know. So that's a thing that really bothered me. But after that same day, I pretty much bought this one, which is the Citroen C1, which is also very economical. It's kind of in the same ballpark as the Panda. It's also a very economical, small car that basically does everything that it needs to get you from point A to B, and that's all it does. That's all I really need anyway. I just go grocery shopping with it, and that is that. And so far it's been doing quite well. It hasn't had a roadworthiness test yet, but you know, that's coming up probably sometime early next year, and it should be okay. I'm having it like taken care of in a garage soon. How you guys doing? Everybody doing okay? I'm going to the left. Anyway, so everybody's very slow. There we go, we're on the right place. Okay, so guess we're not moving immediately and going back to first gear. So I'm having it taken to the garage next week Wednesday, so I can have it like have maintenance done, and that should be good, hopefully. Now I gotta pay attention here because I tend to get lost in this area, like with going the wrong way. I have to go straight ahead here and then left afterwards. Let's see how that works. This way, yeah, and then left after, right here. Okay. So that's the thing that happens. Hopefully it'll manage to get through the test next year. And if they see anything, I'm gonna have to ask them to really look at the car and ask if they can check for things that would make it fail the test, because otherwise I won't be able to pass it soonish. And if anybody's wondering how I managed to learn, like teach myself to drive again, the thing is with my area, there's a grocery store about 10 minutes down the road, and it's a single lane road, so I wouldn't have to worry about people trying to pass me and stuff like that. So that's how I basically got back into the saddle, just doing 10-minute drives at least once a week, and then getting a little more confidence along the way. And then there was this lockdown situation where we had to avoid using the train, but I was supposed to come to the office, so I had to drive to the office on the highway a couple of times. That's just kind of how I eased myself back into it, and now I drive fairly regularly, so that's how we got better, I guess. But I'm about to get to the store, so hope you have a nice weekend. I'll see you around, I suppose. Make sure to let me know about your cars. Always interesting to hear about other people and their experiences. And in any case, thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.